Hi, this is a video to put elastic onto a homemade drop flap nappy based on the flapper app design by Jen Philpott of Born Ready. Here is the drop flap nappy constructed with the pull and the fleece, the top pocket and the bottom pocket all ready to go. It just needs the elastic putting around the side and the little hooks putting onto the end. So I'm just going to show you how I do the elastic to help you guys. So I've got this elastic here, which is the 1-inch fold over elastic, and it's a soft finish, which is really nice on the baby's legs. It's stayed soft as well. This is the most commonly found binding elastic that you can buy, and it's this satin finish, which is also really soft on the baby's legs as well, but as you can see it's a lot thinner, and I found that this one was just too finicky to deal with, but putting it over the edge of, you know, 2 layers of fleece and a pull edge, so I decided to get something a bit thicker and a bit more robust. So that's the one that I chose. Okay, so to start off with, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim around the edges. You can see here I've done that's probably just over 1/2 centimetre seam allowance around the edge, but these extra bits sticking out just make it more difficult to put the binding elastic around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim all the way around the edges so that I've got a really neat neat edge all the way around that is the same distance, so the elastic is going to be really snug fitting all the way around, and none of this seam is going to be showing once the elastic is on. So now you can see I've just trimmed around the edges as the trimmings, just so that they're all nice and even and flush, so there isn't more pull on one side than there is fleece on the other, so it's all nice and neat, ready for the elastic to go around. So the first stage of the elastic that we're going to do is just do some measuring. So for this one that I've done, you need to do the exact amount across the top plus 2 centimetres on each side for the hooks to go through, and then on the bottom we need the length of the bottom here, with just a little bit extra on this side to fold under. I'd probably say 1/2 centimetre on extra on each side to fold under. And then for these edges, I've used 36 centimetres, and I've measured that just from past ones that I've done to be a good amount to create enough gathering to make it a good fit. And we're gonna pin down to here without easing, and then from about here to the bottom with easing, so only there to the bottom will be eased up to make it shorter and stretchy for a good fit. So I'm just going to measure those out now and cut those, and then you can see those once I've cut them. So I've pinned this in place here just for measuring, so I've left 2 centimetres on the end there, and then I've just pinned it along the curve, because it's hard to measure along a curve the exact measurement without actually having it in place. And if you can see, I've kept the pins right to the top of the elastic here, so I'm not going into part of the pull with the pin, because the more holes that you've got in the pull of the main body, the more it will affect the waterproofness of it, because obviously the water will go in and out of any holes that you're making it. So I've just done it on the curve around there, and then I'm just going to cut about another 2 centimetres off the end there. I mean, I'm not measuring here because measurements really aren't important, just as long as you have enough. So that's the first piece measured. I'm going to go and do the bottom piece. So as the bottom piece is a straight edge, I've just lain it across. So I've just left a little bit extra on the edge there, between 1/2 centimetre and 1 centimetre. You can always leave more if you want to, and then, because it's going to be cut off once it's done. And then just about here, just going to do a little cut there, and then that will be our bottom piece. So we're on the stage of putting in the side pieces, which I'm going to do first with the easing. So we have the elastic up here. I've started it exactly flush with the edge of the drop flap nappy at the top. And then I've pinned it just normally down to halfway through the top pocket. And then I've got a pin in this vertical way, because that's the way that I'm going to be pinning in the ease. It's a lot easier to do it that way. So this is the start of my ease, and then down this end I'm just going to pin it to the end there. So again, it's flush, and then I'm going to ease this in, and I'll show you the way that I do it, which I found to be the easiest way, in a moment. So the easiest way that I've found to do the easing is to wear a good sturdy pair of jeans and pin into the side seam of the pair of jeans here. So I'm just going to take that pin out of the back and then pin it through the side seam of my jeans and then back into it again. There. And then that creates a secure base for me to pull against. So where we've started here, halfway through our pocket, I'm going to pull that straight, and you can see that will create a perfect gathering once we've pinned that all in place, and then we can sew it, because we're not going to be pulling when we sew, so we want to be able to really get that evenly in place, and this is the best way that I've found to do that. So first thing is to go between my two pins, to go about halfway, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the central seam between the two sides of the binding elastic. You can't really see on here because I've got quite a bright flashlight on, but there's a central seam, and I'm going to line up the edge of the drop flap nappy with that central seam to make sure it's right at the top, and then hold that over. There you go. And then if I just hold that there, I can let go and it all goes loose. That's the place where I'm going to be pinning, so I'll just pop a pin in there. And then I'll be doing the same all the way. So from that pin to the first pin, I'm going to stretch again, and I'm going to find the halfway point. It doesn't have to be completely accurate, which is about there. Make sure that's really snugly in there. Pinch and pin. And on the other side, so from our first halfway point to the edge, I'm going to find the halfway point between those two, which is about there. So again, make sure that's really flush with that top seam, and then pinch and pin. Okay, and then you can see that we're getting a really even gather now all the way up. So I'm going to carry on stretching, finding the halfway point, pinching and pinning. There we go. So on to the next piece, so stretch, find the halfway point, pinch and pin. I've not got very sharp pins. And the next one, again, stretch, find the halfway point, pinch and pin. And again, stretch, find the halfway point, pinch and pin. There we go. So you can see now that that's starting to gather up, and that's what we want. That looks great. Okay, so now what we don't want is, so this is going to be going through the machine as it is, so with the pins in like this, and then we're going to be taking the pins out as we go. So what we don't want is underneath any of these pieces for bits to be coming out like this. As you can see, so if you've got bits that are coming out like that, then they're not going to be getting caught underneath the elastic to go through the machine. So we want those bits to be in and secure. So again, keep stretching, pinching and pinning. So the thing about easing, you need loads of pins. Keep stretching, pinching and pinning until it can't do that anymore, can't come out. And then we're going to zigzag it on the machine. So I'm going to carry on pinning now, all stretching, pinching and pinning all the way along until that's done. So we're just about to do the sewing, but what I would recommend to do first would be just to check that you've got your zigzag stitch set up correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check that I've got my length and width right for a good stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew with the manufacturer's automatic length and width and see what happens. Okay, so I'm just going to take my needle out and just check that that is stretchy enough. So let's have a little look at this, just 1 minute. Okay. You can see the stitch in there. It's quite close together. If I give it a stretch, it's got a good stretch in it, but there's a little bit of resistance there. So I think what I want is a little bit of a bigger gap between the zigzags. So I'm just going to increase the length a little bit. So I think I'll do 3. And the width of the stitch as well probably could be a bit bigger, just so that I'm getting all of the edge of the seam that I've done with the fleece and the pull into that. So I think I'll just do that a little bit bigger as well, probably make that a 4. Let's try that. Okay, just get my camera there, sorry, my fingers are getting in the way there. Okay, so let's pop that under and try that stitch. So we've got. Let's take a look at that. Okay, that looks much better if you can see that. I'm sorry, it's white stitching on a white elastic and a very bright light. Let me try taking the light off, flash off, maybe you can see the stitching a bit better. There we go. So you can see this first stitching that I did was short and to go there in this much longer, and then once we stretch that out, yeah, there's no resistance there. We're getting a good stretch from that. So I think that will be better. So I've got the length on 3 and the width on 4. So this is the length here, and that's the width of the zigzag is on 4. So I'm going to set that up now. And we'll get stitching, and what I want to do is I want to stitch so that it's exactly on the edge of this elastic binding. If I come in, then what will happen is this elastic binding will start to curl up like this when it's stretched, and also when it's washed it'll just start to curl, so we really want it right along the edge here of the elastic all the way down. Okay, I'm just going to get my camera in place there. Okay, so as you can see, my needle at the edge of the zigzag is right in at the edge there, so I'm getting it really right down the edge. And then you just let's put the light back on there. Let's just carry on. Now we get into the part of the ease, and what I'm going to do, literally I'm just going to make sure all of the fabric is inside there, and I'm just going to not stretch anything, just sewing the zigzag stitch, removing the pins as I go, not stretching anything, just removing the pin, making sure all the fabric is in the elastic, removing the pin, removing the pin, and then that's how we're just going to do it all the way down. No stretching at all, because if you stretch it, then you just stretch out the elastic into a position that's already stretched, rather than it having a non-stretch position and then a stretch position. It will constantly just be in the stretch position, which is no good. And there we go. Sorry about the droop of the camera there. I'm trying to do this non-handed with the camera in a strange position. But there you go, that's how you do it. So no stretching of the elastic, and then it's all done. It should be nicely eased in. So we finished that sewing, but what's happened is that there isn't enough give and there isn't enough ease that's been put in. I haven't put enough ease in. So this is the flapper wrap that I've done before. This is one of my other ones that I've finished. And this is the one that I've just done. And as you can see, if we do length to length, this one still is a lot longer. And it hasn't got as much gathering as this one has. So something's happened somewhere. I think what's happened is I've used a much smaller stitch than what I used before. You can see here I've done it much larger, spaced apart. I should have looked at this one really before I redid this one. So much wider spaced stitch, so I'm going to try that. And also I've just re-measured this, and it's 34 centimeters, not 36. So I'm going to chop 2 centimeters off this, so it's 34 centimeters, not 36. And I'm going to do a bigger stitch and hope that we get the same result as we did before. So I'm really glad this happened actually, because mistakes are great, because when you make mistakes at home and it's not quite right, you'll be able to tell from my mistake. So I'm going to undo that now, and then we'll try again. Okay, so I redid that and it still didn't work. So I went back to the drawing board and I rethought it. And what I had done was measure a drop flat lappy that I'd already done, and do the elastic to that. And I didn't take into account that this elastic would have stretched out. So I trimmed this right down to 30 centimetres. I changed the width and length. I changed it to I changed the width to 3.5, and then I changed the length to 4.5. So I made the length longer and the width a little bit smaller, and then we did it. So I've got the perfect zigzag here, and this now measures 34 centimetres, which is the same as the other one that I did, which is perfect. So I managed to do it in the end, but because I've not sewn one for a little while, I've completely forgotten what I did. So best way to find out how it the best thing to do is to just keep trying different things. We got there in the end. So 30 centimetres of elastic, which then comes out at around 34 to 36 centimetres when it's all scrunched up. So that's all done now. I'm going to do the other side exactly the same as that, and then do the top and the bottom as well. So I've got both of the side pieces done now, and thankfully with enough ease in there, not like it was the first and second times. So I'm going to do the bottom now, and I found the best way to do it was to get the bit of elastic, fold a little bit over, and just do a straight stitch along there, which I'm going to do now. So I did that straight stitch along the edge, and that gives me a nice finish to do the corners with. So I'm literally just going to fold this bit over the corner, and then I'm going to pin it all the way along, and I'm going to do the same on the other end as well. So then I'll have nice neat corners. I'm going to stitch down this edge, and then I'm going to stitch along there as well. Okay, so I just stitched along that edge there to keep that secure, and then I'm just going to stitch zigzag all the way down, and I've got my zigzag on 3.5 for width and 4.5 for the length, the same as I've done the others. And you don't need to ease it in, and you can pin it if you want to, but because it's the same width as the drop flap nappy, you don't really need to pin and ease that in, but you can if you want to keep it in place. So I'm just going to zigzag down there now. So I've got down to the other end of the bottom of the elastic, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that in place like that, and then put that over the end there, and then finish zigzagging all the way down to give that a nice clean finish. That's the right length. And then with my needle still in the fabric, I'm just going to change to a straight stitch and just do a little bit of a straight stitch up the edge to keep that in place. Sorry about the camera angle there, trying to sew and keep the camera steady with one hand, but yeah, basically just stitch the edging in place. And there's the finished bottom elastic. So from that edge there, I mean this is over a little bit here, that's my terrible sewing, but it really doesn't matter because that bit is going to be at the back of the baby and it's not taking any weight or anything. I'll just make sure it's stitched properly in place, and then the other side a little bit neater, which is great. Okay, and then all you've got left to do is to do the top bit, making sure that you leave the little bits of extra on both sides. Okay, so now I've sewn on the top bit of elastic as well, and as you can see, this is where it ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hook through here, and then it's going to be folded down to that bit there with the hook in. And then I'm going to sew it across there. It'll be folded down and then sewn across. Okay, so that's it in place there, and the hook facing down towards the main body of the drop flap nappy. I found that is the best way for the hook to be facing, otherwise it comes out of the little elastic belt while it's being worn. And then I'm just going to zigzag, 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 zigzag across there on a shorter length zigzag, just to make sure that's nice and secure, because this gets a lot of stretch on this bit here, so it really needs to be secure. So as you can see, I've folded that over and I've zigzag stitched with a short length, zigzag stitched it on, and I've also lengthened the zigzag stitch to go across the end of the other piece of elastic, just so that isn't going to fray when it's washed. So that's just edged that as well and stuck that bit on. And then once I've done the other side for the hook, there'll be one finished drop flap nappy already. I hope that you've got everything from this video that you need, and the fact that I made mistakes was helpful because that will help you to not make the same ones. So good luck and happy ECing, everyone.